Now as soon as they had come out of the synagogue, they entered the house of Simon and Andrew with James and John. But Simon's wife's mother lay sick with a fever, and they told him about her at once. So he came and took her by the hand and lifted her up, and immediately the fever left her, and she served them. Then they went into Capernaum, and immediately on the Sabbath he entered the synagogue and taught. And they were astonished at his teaching, for he taught them as one having authority, and not as the scribes. Now there was a man in their synagogue with an unclean spirit, and he cried out,
"Let us alone! What have we to do with you, Jesus of Nazareth? Did you come to destroy us? I know who you are, the Holy One of God!"
Be quiet and come out of him.
And when the unclean spirit had convulsed him and cried out with a loud voice, he came out of him. Then they were all amazed, so that they questioned among themselves,
"What is this? What new doctrine is this?
For with authority he commands even the unclean spirits, and they obey him."
And immediately his fame spread throughout all the region around Galilee. And he entered the synagogue again, and a man was there who had a withered hand. So they watched him closely, whether he would heal him on the Sabbath, so that they might accuse him. And he said to the man who had the withered hand,
Step forward. Is it lawful on the Sabbath to do good or to do evil, to save life or to kill?
But they kept silent. And when he had looked around at them with anger, being grieved by the hardness of their hearts, he said to the man,
Stretch out your hand.
And he stretched it out, and his hand was restored as whole as the other. Then the Pharisees went out and immediately plotted with the Herodians against him, how they might destroy him.
Now he was teaching in one of the synagogues on the Sabbath. And behold, there was a woman who had a spirit of infirmity 18 years, and was bent over and could in no way raise herself up. But when Jesus saw her, he called her to him.
Woman, you are loosed from your infirmity.
And he laid his hands on her, and immediately she was made straight and glorified God. But the ruler of the synagogue answered with indignation, because Jesus had healed on the Sabbath. And he said to the crowd,
There are 6 days on which men ought to work. Therefore come and be healed on them, and not on the Sabbath day.
Hypocrite! Does not each one of you on the Sabbath loose his ox or donkey from the stall and lead it away to water it? So ought not this woman, being a daughter of Abraham, whom Satan has bound, think of it, for 18 years, be loosed from this bond on the Sabbath?
And when he said these things, all his adversaries were put to shame, and all the multitude rejoiced for all the glorious things that were done by him. Now it happened, as he went into the house of one of the rulers of the Pharisees, to eat bread on the Sabbath, that they watched him closely. And behold, there was a certain man before him who had dropsy. And Jesus, answering, spoke to the lawyers and Pharisees.
Is it lawful to heal on the Sabbath?
But they kept silent. And he took him and healed him, and let him go. Then he answered them,
Which of you, having a donkey or an ox that has fallen into a pit, will not immediately pull him out on the Sabbath day?
And they could not answer him regarding these things.
After this, there was a feast of the Jews, and Jesus went up to Jerusalem. Now there is in Jerusalem by the sheep gate a pool, which is called in Hebrew Bethesda, having 5 porches. In these lay a great multitude of sick people, blind, lame, paralyzed, waiting for the moving of the water. For an angel went down at a certain time into the pool and stirred up the water. Then whoever stepped in first, after the stirring of the water, was made well of whatever disease he had. Now a certain man was there who had an infirmity 38 years. When Jesus saw him lying there and knew that he already had been in that condition a long time, he said to him,
Do you want to be made well?
Sir, I have no man to put me into the pool when the water is stirred up. But while I am coming, another steps down before me.
Rise, take up your bed and walk.
And immediately the man was made well, took up his bed and walked. And that day was the Sabbath. The Jews therefore said to him who was cured,
It is the Sabbath. It is not lawful for you to carry your bed.
He who made me well said to me, Take up your bed and walk.
Who is the man who said to you, Take up your bed and walk?
But the man who was healed did not know who it was, for Jesus had withdrawn, a multitude being in that place. Afterward, Jesus found him in the temple and said to him,
See, you have been made well. Sin no more, lest the worst thing come upon you.
The man departed and told the Jews that it was Jesus who had made him well. For this reason the Jews persecuted Jesus and sought to kill him, because he had done these things on the Sabbath. Now as Jesus passed by, he saw a man who was blind from birth, and his disciples asked him,
Rabbi, who sinned, this man or his parents, that he was born blind?
Neither this man nor his parents sinned, but that the works of God should be revealed in him. I must work the works of him who sent me while it is day. The night is coming when no one can work. As long as I am in the world, I am the light of the world.
When he had said these things, he spat on the ground and made clay with the saliva. And he anointed the eyes of the blind man with the clay.
Go, wash in the pool of Siloam,
which is translated, sent. So he went and washed and came back seeing. Therefore the neighbors and those who previously had seen that he was blind said,
Is not this he who sat and begged?
This is he.
Others said,
He is like him.
I am he.
How were your eyes opened?
A man called Jesus made clay and anointed my eyes and said to me, Go to the pool of Siloam and wash. So I went and washed, and I received sight.
Where is he?
I do not know.
They brought him who formerly was blind to the Pharisees. Now it was a Sabbath when Jesus made the clay and opened his eyes. Then the Pharisees also asked him again how he had received his sight.
He put clay on my eyes, and I washed, and I see.
This man is not from God, because he does not keep the Sabbath.
How can a man who is a sinner do such signs?
And there was a division among them. They said to the blind man again,
What do you say about him, because he opened your eyes?
He is a prophet.
But the Jews did not believe concerning him, that he had been blind and received his sight, until they called the parents of him who had received his sight, and he asked them, saying,
Is this your son, who you say was born blind? How then does he now see?
We know that this is our son, and that he was born blind. But by what means he now sees, we do not know, or who opened his eyes. We do not know. He is of age. Ask him. He will speak for himself.
His parents said these things because they feared the Jews, for the Jews had agreed already that if anyone confessed that he was Christ, he would be put out of the synagogue. Therefore his parents said, He is of age. Ask him. So they again called the man who was blind.
Give God the glory. We know that this man is a sinner.
Whether he is a sinner or not, I do not know. One thing I know, that though I was blind, now I see.
What did he do to you? How did he open your eyes?
I told you already, and you did not listen. Why do you want to hear it again? Do you also want to become his disciples?
Then they reviled him.
You are his disciple, but we are Moses' disciples. We know that God spoke to Moses. As for this fellow, we do not know where he is from.
Why? This is a marvelous thing, that you do not know where he is from. Yet he has opened my eyes. Now we know that God does not hear sinners, but if anyone is a worshiper of God and does his will, he hears him. Since the world began, it has been unheard of that anyone opened the eyes of one who was born blind. If this man were not from God, he could do nothing.
You were completely born in sins, and are you teaching us?
And they cast him out. Jesus heard that they had cast him out, and when he had found him, he said to him,
"Do you believe in the Son of God?"
Who is he, Lord, that I may believe in him?
You have both seen him, and it is he who is talking with you.
Lord, I believe.
And he worshipped him.
For judgment I have come into this world, that those who do not see may see, and that those who see may be made blind.
Then some of the Pharisees who were with him heard these words.
Are we blind also?
If you were blind, you would have no sin. But now you say, "We see." Therefore your sin remains.